Well then, shaggers and fandangos and all those in between, welcome to my first ever solo podcast. What we'll be touching on, this is just a wee introductory podcast to myself and what I'm going to be doing on this platform. For those who don't know me, my name's Tam, I'm from Dundee and I've come over from TikTok as Angry Plumber. What we'll be doing on this podcast is just really going forward from what I was doing with the guys on Tikinover. Not taking away from them as guys, they're amazing guys, but that was not going in the path or the vision that I had set out when I originally planned on doing podcasts. What I will say is I can't thank the guys enough for the past 5 weeks. Has been a growing and learning experience for myself and the guys, and we still remain in touch and friends. And going forward, I wish them nothing but the best on their podcast. I hope they continue it and see how it goes. But for myself, and this platform, and for what I'm going to be doing, I'm going to be doing mostly ranting, mostly getting guys on off of TikTok, off of social media and other platforms, as well as entrepreneurs, a little bit of delving into like maybe gangster culture, mental health stuff, but all approached with a little bit of banter and ranting. Also, I'm going to get guests on whoever you think you may feel will be suitable on this platform. Please give me any feedback that you think will be beneficial for me as a podcaster. I'm not really deeming myself as a podcaster because I don't really see it as a platform for me to be doing that just now because I don't have that many followers. But hopefully, once you guys get to see and know me, you will see that I'm a genuine guy. The Angry Plumber persona is just that, it's a persona. So let's kick it off. So thank you for joining me. My name's Tam, as I said, I'm from Dundee in Scotland. I'm Angry Plumber off of TikTok. All started years ago when I was born, and obviously I was born to a single parent. My mum was amazing, didn't need a dad. Growing up in the stigma in the area of HIV and AIDS around Dundee, I was growing up with people thinking that it was okay to stigmatize people and give them abuse. I have a condition myself called FAP and Lynch syndrome, which is a bowel disorder. And growing up in Kirton at the time, people would break into the delivery system of the people giving you the bags and giving you these utilities to live your daily life. They would plaster them all over the place. So I was growing up in a very hostile environment. I was to try to be bullied, but due to being able to do martial arts, I was kind of a little bit confident in that area. Growing up around my mum had Lynch and FAP syndrome because it's hereditary. So I found that from a very young age, I would have this symptoms and have this disease and illness. Sadly, I have passed it on to my daughter. But growing up with it myself, my mum was an amazing advocate for cancer, bowel cancer, colon cancer, all types of cancer really, because it's hereditary, it's in my genes. I will pass it, like I said, I passed it on to my kid. She will pass it on to possibly one of her kids when she's older. It's a guilt that I feel that I shouldn't need to feel guilty, but I do as a parent. I see how my mum kind of fought and made it trying to be a day-to-day thing for myself. So growing up, I was kind of always trying to be better than anyone. I was always trying to push myself forward, trying to better myself and trying to better those around me. It's not in an arrogant way. I don't go out my way to maybe hurt people or push people away or that, but I do tend to be a little more upfront and a little more honest and a little more, not hurtful, but just I don't think first, I speak first and act later. But what you'll hopefully find on this podcast is there will be ranting, there will be typical banter as well, back and forth. It won't just be myself every week. There will be a guest coming on. We'll have several guests, maybe 1 week. We'll try and get more than one podcast out a week. But given time, given people who have jobs and opportunities out there, they will have to either go elsewhere or do other things. That's perfectly fine. It's a free world. We're all entitled to do what we want to do. But what I will say is, I'm just going back. Growing up in Kirton and Dundee, it was a very, very stressful and trying time. For those who know me around Kirton and Dundee, you'll know that my mum was synonymous in Kirton. So was her partner. Growing up, my brother was a prolific bouncer. He was always doing the doors around every area. Growing up, it was only me, my mum and my brother. That was our support network. We didn't go on holidays. We didn't have fancy things. My mum had to work 2 jobs most of the time to provide for us. My dad was practically nowhere. My big brother longed for a relationship with my father, but my father wasn't the type of guy who he probably never showed love to anyone, or no one showed him love, so he didn't know how to reciprocate it. My big brother would also just sit at the window waiting on my dad coming, and that was the fondest memory I ever had of my dad, of him upsetting my brother, which was pretty sad and pretty pathetic if you come to think about it, that's the only real memory you have of your father, which is pretty stupid. Whereas for me, my mum was enough. My mum was my world right up until she passed away at Christmas last year. She always will be at the twinkle of my eye. My dad, I don't really call him my dad, I call him Dave. So therefore that, growing up, I didn't attend school, I wasn't the brightest in the bunch. In those days, you were kind of laughed at for being dyslexic, and the condition that I had a very long time off of school. So going back to school was always a troubling time for me. So the teachers would always think, oh, you'll never amount to anything. You'll just be a bum all your life. And it's just stuff like that. Like, they always just seem to think, sorry, but that's not perfect, is it? Teachers just seem to think back in those days, if you had dyslexia, you were dumb, you were stupid. It was nothing to do with the school. It was always to do with you. So on that note, I had social workers, not because I was a bad upbringing at the home, but because the school system didn't really know how to cater for those who didn't go to school back then. So you were put into these wee establishments where you were labelled thick, whether it be Ergo or Connect 5, you were always just looked at as if to say, oh, why didn't you go to school? You're pretty thick. Not to say the school was like, oh, why couldn't we have done more to get you into school? Whereas me, I always wondered, you should have been doing more to get me into school. So I left school at a very young age. I never went back, never done any exams. I found my niche at college, started studying straight about 15-year-old, mechanical engineering, civil engineering. I tried electronic engineering, but that wasn't for me. Tried physics, that wasn't for me. English and maths wasn't for me. So I went on to I done a pre-apprentice course at the college, and that was a combination of courses like joinery work, sparky, welding, fabricating, and plumbing. So I tried to do the sparky test, walked up to that test, and it was like, good one, pal. I'm not doing that test. Got up and walked out. Was a very keen welder. Tried my hand at welding. That didn't kind of go to plan because companies were looking for someone younger. Tried my test at plumbing, failed the plumbing test 3 times. On the 4th time, lucky I had an amazing teacher, a boy called Andy Bruce. He was brilliant. Passed that test after the 4th time. So lucky he kind of seen something in me that would be, in later life, I'd become a plumber. So I always thought, when I was thinking about the school, why didn't the school kind of just see that he was either good with his hands, like I was always good at techie drawing and stuff. So why didn't they see that, oh, this guy's got something there, it's maybe the learning that's the problem? So they never did, but the college kind of took over for that. I was very, very driven when I was younger. Even though I had this condition and it's classed as a form of cancer, I tried to get into the armed forces as a paratrooper in the parachute regiment. Sadly though, during training I was MD'd because it did come out in the test that I had surgery at 12, and because I was 17 when I tried, I was just under the 5-year mark for surgery, and my scar tissues and scars still hadn't healed properly, so I had to be MD'd. That was a wee bit of a heartbreaker because that's all I ever planned on being, from going in cadets, going to the TA, after that as a non-combatant instructor and stuff. I just found that would have been a great career choice for me, but it wasn't to be. So rather than sit and dwell on it, I went to college again, and that's when I become a full-fledged plumber. I was very heated, I was very argumentative, I'm always up front, but luckily the company that I was with at the time, they had a great bunch of guys. I was just sat there, you would think you were all brothers, actually, to be perfectly honest. And that 4 years went past, my apprenticeship was great. Sat to be the best apprentice in the 3 years. went to the Nationals. Sadly, I never won anything on the Nationals, but I did on the Dundee one. And that kind of took me on to my career as a plumber. I went on from there. Sadly, all I've kind of known all my life is loss. Everyone I've ever loved has kind of died because of this illness that I have. My mum's passed away, like I said. Sadly, my brother, who was a bouncer, got a fatal head injury once. And after a while, it became clear that he had a brain problem. He was having epileptic fits. And sadly, while I was in hospital getting my surgery done, he passed away. And that's a guilt that constantly riddles me. See, if I could give anyone advice, don't let little gripes or little arguments determine you and your family's friendship. Going forward, don't sit there and dwindle on things that could have happened and things that should have happened. I've done that for 4 years, and it put me into a very dark place. I was just not a nice person to be around. My wife, my family, my kids all noticed it. I was just sitting depressed in the room. I would like to say I didn't dwell in time to take drugs, but I did. The alcohol was a little bit of an alleviator. I was sitting at weekends going out and binge drinking. I used to DJ. My big brother was a bouncer, like I said. So I would DJ. We would go there together. After he passed, I kind of thought, well, fuck it, what's the point in doing the DJing anymore? So I stopped. And that's kind of when the mental health issues started creeping up. In late 2013, I had to get my colon and bowels removed and some of my intestine due to this inherited form of cancer. And back then it was, you either get a bag or you die. Now I know the medical science has moved leaps and bounds, but back then I had 3 tumours, and these 3 tumours were called, 2 of them were called desmoid tumours, and one of them was obviously malignant. Ding Wells, sadly at the time, thought these tumours were scar tissue or hernias, so they put a mesh over them. Kind of made my health a lot worse. I've had 8 operations due to the negligence, but I'm not saying negligence, but negligence, and me going back to work after it because I was self-employed. I had a family to provide for. I made the illness and the injuries and the surgeries a lot worse because I'd be back to work within a week after getting out of hospital. I should have listened to my wife. I should have listened to my mum saying, don't go back to work. You have to take time for yourself to heal. And if that's one thing I could say to anyone about this Lynch and FAP syndrome, see if anyone has that condition, listen to your doctors, listen to your family, and especially if you're married, your wife or partner will know you the best. That is a condition that affects mostly up here and your body. You'll end up with a stoma like myself. I have it for life because they neglected to find these tumours and they couldn't stretch the blood vessels and the arteries to the bowel to save it because there's obviously the tumours attached to it. So I can't get an operation on these tumours because of where they are. One that's on my abdomen wall can be removed, so hopefully that will be done within the next few months to a year. But the 2 that's on my blood arteries and my vessels, they can't be removed because it's clinching like that. So they would do too much work. I can't get chemotherapy anymore. I can't get radiotherapy because of the area where the tumours are. It would severely hamper the operating of my stoma. So that going forward, I've always pushed myself to be better, not better than everybody else, but to push myself to be better and not kind of dwell on it. I've always pushed myself to have goals, to be driven. So after a while, I was went on my own to start up my own company. I was a plumbing heating engineer. I've been everyone since I was 17, and I got number 3 in Britain for being plumber of the year. It's not a win, but I'll take that as a win because those 1,500 entries. Ever since then, it's just been, like I said, it's a loss. I lost my granddad, my auntie, my brother. I've lost cousins. I've lost the only thing that ever mattered at that time that I thought only mattered, which was my mum. My mum was my support network. No one really talks about her anymore. So that's the kind of feelings that I get. It's like if you look at something, if you smell something, you're like, oh, her smell's not on there anymore. It kind of hurts. People don't talk about people who have lost it anymore, and that kind of hurts. So this is what I'm kind of trying to achieve with this podcast. It's just to show people that if mental health has affected you, if you're having a bad time, if things are looking bad, there is people out there that will help. And it's not like when we were younger, when we used to grow up and it'd be, oh, you're crying, you want to man up. It's the 21st century now. Us guys are probably the most suicide rate amongst guys is my age and amongst men. And it shouldn't be that. So I'm trying to alleviate, trying to help guys and trying just to give you an hour out your day where you just don't have any worries, any qualms, and you just sit and listen to a wee bald, fat Scottish guy who may sometimes be angry, who may all the time rant, but is a good guy at heart. I love to help people. I love to help out folk who need it. Because I've seen it myself. I've not come from anything. I'm not rich. I'm not comfy. I worry about putting 20 quid in the car at times. I worry about where the food's going to come. I worry if I'm going to be a great dad. I worry if I'm going to be a great husband. These are the things that push me to be a better person. And if I could help one person out on that podcast to do that, that's me sorted. This is just really an introductory little 15, 20-minute sketch into me as a person. I was on that podcast with the other guys, great guys, all individual guys, and hopefully one day we'll get them on this podcast. But if there's anything you guys and girls want to see on this podcast, please drop it in the comment section and we'll see what we can do. Also, if you have any feedback on what you want on this podcast for me personally, and you want to see what you want to see from me, leave it as a feedback. I will get back to you as always. Like I said, I like helping charities, I like helping folk. I do a lot for vulnerable, disabled, and the elderly. But you can only help so much. You have seen since I started this podcast and on the Angry Plumber TikTok page that people do. Once you say you help people, they want more. They want to get more off you. So I have to pick and choose who and why and when I help. But going forward, I do